Hello and welcome to Cheshire Audio. Now, I want to talk about AV, or more specifically AV amplifiers, I suppose, is kind of the crux of it. I've had a couple of phone calls, and it's conversations I've not had for a long time because it was quite common, end of the 90s, early 2000s, people with AV systems or wanted to go to AV because flat panel TVs had happened and the sound quality was dreadful. And in the press, it seemed to be all you could read about was surround sound packages, and this is the way to make your TV sound better. And I think people thought that was the only way to make your TV sound better. There was no other option. So I used to have people coming in, and they'd have really good music systems, and they'd be very into stereo systems. They'd be very into the music. As regular customers, and they'd be saying, "Oh, I want to upgrade now to surround sound because my TV sounds dreadful, and I want him." I used to try and stop. Don't just assume this is the way to go. Do you watch a lot of films? And quite often people would say, "Oh, listen to my music every night. Always, the music's always on. Love my music, love my records, love my CDs." Every couple of weeks we might watch a film together as a family. And I said, "Well, look, really, what you're going to do is sacrifice the main thing that you're doing just to be able to watch the odd film. You would be far better to just route the stereo output of your TV into the stereo system and do it that way." And a lot of people didn't realise you could do that. Nowadays it's not quite as straightforward because quite often you'll need a DAC. You can buy little DACs for about £100 that'll do the job, or you can spend what you want really. Which is what I do at home. I've just got a little DAC running into the stereo system off the TV, and it's great, really. You don't get all the rear surround stuff and all that, but you get most of it. You get the big scale and the clarity, because clarity was always the issue. People couldn't hear what the vocals on the TV and things, so the clarity was a big thing, and the big scale and the dynamic and everything. And it works great. So I always used to try and persuade, which is like a bit of an anti-sales thing. It's like, don't buy that, just buy this bit of wire. So hence me never having any money. But I always felt I didn't really want people to lose track of the music side of the systems because it was something you could never retrieve. And like I say, these two conversations recently I've had have brought it all back. So I thought, well, let's do a video and talk about the reasons why AV doesn't really work with music. If you're really into your films, full AV is a great thing. I used to work for a company that did actually do big sort of cinema install, domestic cinema install with like electric screens and in the early days it was the big 3-gun projectors, and then later on can't remember how they work now, but single lens, 8-foot screen projection systems and things like that. And we'd have like Proceed or Lexicon front ends and Parasound multiple power amps and the higher end MK surround packages with the big subs or Velodyne subs. So we got really into it all, and doing it properly is phenomenal. You could make a better sound than your local cinema, and obviously it's going to cost you money, but the potential was there to make something way better than your local cinemas. But even on those big systems, the music was dreadful. It just didn't work at all. You can sort of blame speaker packages and subs. There's quite a lot going on there, because a lot of speaker packages they're sort of more tuned towards the AV side with the clarity of vocal and the sort of scale of bass sort of thing. They don't really have speed and delicacy and all that sort of thing and definition. It's all about that mid band and the bass. A lot of subs don't really work with music unless you spend a lot of money on them, and some types are better with music than others, and you have to, it's quite a dodgy grind. You have to spend quite a bit of money on it. But most AV systems have quite poor subs in them because they don't need to be that good. They just need to create an effect. Obviously, that's probably a bit controversial. If you're into AV, that's a bit controversial because better subs make it better. But what I mean is, money-wise, you're not spending anything like as much to get a good effect really with them. The biggie is the amplifier, and that's sort of the unexpected one really, because one of the guys I was talking to on the phone was saying, but it's 80 watts and the harmonic distortion is XYZ, and therefore it's the same as a stereo amplifier. And it's like, well, no, it isn't. It's much more complicated than that. And you've got to look at what's incorporated in a stereo amplifier. A proper specialist stereo amplifier is kind of 3 components internally. You'll have, or 3 parts. You've got the preamp section, which is volume control and all the switching, and then you have power amps, so you've got left and right. So it's basically 3 parts. The preamp sends a signal from whatever it's switched to your power amps, and that makes it go louder. And that's all that's in there. And quite often you'll have a big transformer, because the bigger the transformer, the better the amplifier is going to be, or the better the quality of the transformer. You get more dynamic and more whatever else. Very simplistic way of talking about it, but that's kind of it. With an AV amplifier, you've got your preamplifier, you will have video switching, you'll have quite often a FM DAB tuner in there, because the American market is sort of very into big amplifiers with radios in. So that tends to be the way it is. You also have video switching. You've got bass management stuff, all the stuff for the remote, which you would probably have in the stereo amp as well, but whatever. So you've got that in there. There'll be 7, 9 or 11 possibly power amplifiers to run all the different speakers. There'll be circuitry in there. Quite often you'll have things with relays in, so it'll switch between, so you can actually have second zone systems and all that. They tend to be massively spec'd. Loads of things on there that you can do. There's all the Dolby stuff, whatever. So at a basic level, if you spend 1,500 quid on an amplifier, if it's a stereo amplifier, you're looking at very, very simplistic, you're looking at £500 per component within it, really. Your preamp, your two power amp sections. With an AV amplifier, £1,500, you're looking at sort of 15 plus components internally, so you've got to look at the fact that you're probably at £100 per bit. So £100 preamp, £100 left and right channels. I mean, like I say, this is very simplistic, and it isn't really how it would work. But it's just to give you an idea of the scale of you're buying all this stuff, whereas with a stereo amplifier, just these little bits, and so you're getting a lot more value for money. Also a bit of an issue that most of those bits that are in there all interact with each other. There's, as I've said before on here, amplifiers don't like noise. And the design of an amplifier is all about keeping the effect of nearby components from affecting the actual flow of signals through the amplifier. When you're sort of designing an AV amplifier, your problem is space quite often. And I know a lot of audio engineers won't repair them. They won't go near, because they're so complicated inside. Whereas a stereo amplifier, you'll have big transformer, your board with your power amp section and your preamp board at the front, or sometimes it's all incorporated together, but it's all sort of single board. There it is, and you can see what's going on. AV amplifiers are multi-level boards, everything's stacked up on top of everything else. So they're all interfering with each other. And if you want to try and fault find something on, say, a switching board or whatever it is, it'll be buried under something else, and you can't get to it without disassembling. And once you've disassembled it, you can't power it up and use it. So, yeah, loads of issues in that respect. But sound quality wise, it's all the sort of noise of everything affecting everything else, and blur. It's not a noise that you would hear as a buzz or anything like that. It's not an audible extra noise. It's a blurring of the signal. A bit like sort of dirty windows. If you're looking out, if you clean your windows, all of a sudden it's nice and bright and clear. But if 2 months of the windows here, it's worse, because we've got all the traffic going past here. It's sort of, you can see out, but there's a film over the top sort of thing. And that's what it's like when you put componentry next to each other. It sort of clouds everything. It throws a blanket over it and stops it being as precise and clear and clean. And obviously AV amplifiers tend to be bigger, but they're not big enough, really. They have to be huge to be able to spread everything out. So you get all this interaction between the componentry. The amount of things you're buying means that the actual stereo part is actually a very small part of it, cost-wise. The other aspect of it is, like I was saying about having a big transformer in a stereo amplifier, they tend to have much smaller transformers, because it's partly because there's no space, and they're trying to cut down interference as much as they can, so the transformer is a bit of an issue, so they cut the size of that right down. And it's driving so many things as well. It's not just driving your preamp, your two power amp parts, it's driving all these other channels and everything else. So you're limited on that aspect as well. So they always sound, to me, just very flat and uninteresting. They just don't have any sort of clarity or interest at all, compared to a stereo amplifier. And you'll find that whatever you spend on an AV amplifier, even quite a budget stereo amp, will sound better. I know this is all very controversial, but it's just what it is a fundamental. It is an issue, and it's sort of. I quite often don't know what to say to people if they're trying to they're trying to improve things with music. I mean, there are ways around, sort of, if you're lucky. If your AV amp has got preamp outs, you can run it into a stereo amp. There's a messy way of doing it where you can run into an input and then you keep everything on full volume, and when you're watching AV, and then turn the volume down, and because you'd have your CD and your echo plate into the stereo amp, and all your AV stuff into the AV amp, and you're using, it's very complicated, you're using your main left and right outputs from your preamp out into the stereo amp, and using that as a power amp. But you have to turn the volume right up, or I tend to say turn it halfway and then adjust everything else to match. It's very messy, and if you forget and then put a CD on, you could, hate to think. Some amplifiers do have power amp in. They have like a little bypass, so you can actually run, but that's quite unusual. A lot of the really specialist stuff doesn't have that. It tends to be more sort of mass markety type amps that'll have a preamp out and power amp in sort of options on them. But that's a good way of doing it if you can do that. Some audio labs used to have a switch where you could have a feed in, and you could switch between the external feed and the internal, whatever. So that used to work quite well. But generally, yeah, it's a bit of a nightmare. And obviously people don't want to have two systems running in the same room. So I always feel as though if the best way to go with it is if you're not watching films as a main thing and it's the music is your interest, just go with stereo and feed your TV through it. And one of the guys I was talking to said, "Oh, it's just because you don't like AV." And it's no, I do like AV, but I think it has its place, and I do feel as though a lot of people sort of opt for AV a little bit too quickly. I think you need to sort of just think, right, how am I going to use this? How's it going to work for me? Anyway, that's it. That's why I don't think AV amps work, or AV works for music, really. And I know I'm a bit of a sort of audiophile, music buff type person, and perhaps my requirements are higher than the average, but it surprises me actually how many people talk about this and are trying to fix it and trying to find a way around it over the years. And it's just like I said, a couple of guys recently just reminded me, because it's been a while since I've had the conversation, so yeah, hope that's helpful. It's not really helpful at all, is it? It's probably just depressing if you've got an AV amp and you try to fit. Yeah, probably just spoiled things for you. But anyway, thanks for watching. I'm going to do a little news video. Actually, there's a few things going on at the moment, but perhaps worth talking about. I might do that this next couple of days. And I still haven't ordered the parts for the acoustic research project I'm doing, so I might do that after this video. Actually, I might go on eBay, see if I can find some bits. That's it. Yeah, let's end it there. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a subscribe and give us a like. I will see you in a future video. Thank you very much.